Welcome back to the Irish Recruiting Podcast. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, lifelong fan of college football across the country. And one of my favorite rivalries is Notre Dame and Miami. So we're going to be talking about Notre Dame's depth chart as the Irish get prepared to head down to Miami Gardens to play the Canes in Hard Rock Stadium. Some late risers, some guys that I saw in high school, some players that I've evaluated. We're going to look at this from a recruiting lens, but also we're going to look at this as matchups. It is game week, Notre Dame, Miami. So let's have some fun with this. Got a handful of guys that I want to talk about with the Irish. But the first player that I want to talk about, I want to use from the high school ranks because he literally has not played a game at Notre Dame yet. He's actually in his first fall camp with the Irish. That is Nolan James out of DePaul Catholic in New Jersey. I'm going to cue it up here. We're going to talk a little bit of Notre Dame running back situation. And most people probably think, well, you got Jadarian Price. Okay, that's true. He's your main backup. But you also have this Jeremiah Love guy. Why would you need extras? Running back, there's just a lot of attrition. And you need versatile running backs. You need to be able to take carries off of guys so you can save them for the playoff. That's what Notre Dame did last year with Jeremiah. They were smart. He got fewer stats, but they tried to preserve him. And he still got banged up. Running back is hard. So having depth, having 3, 4, 5 guys is really important. And I think that Notre Dame is just like anybody else. They're going to try to find guys that can be versatile. They're going to try to find guys that can pass protect. That's huge, especially with the young quarterback. And they're also going to try to find guys that can be explosive in a lot of different ways. So we'll figure it out as we go along here. But I'm going to show some Nolan James film. I haven't watched this in a while, so bear with me. I'll probably rewind it a few times and kind of go down that road. But overall, just note that this is a guy that is an all-around running back that was kind of a late riser, originally committed to BC. He kind of picks his way. He reminds me of a certain guy that Notre Dame had a couple years ago that is now playing for the LA Rams. Same kind of stature, a little bit bigger. He's, for what it's worth, Nolan James is now listed at 215 pounds. I don't know what he weighed right here. I'm guessing 190 something. But again, he was committed originally to the Boston College Eagles. Notre Dame saw some film. His teammate signed with Notre Dame too. We'll talk about him at some point, probably in the next few days. But I want to focus on James here. Notice how he's very consistent with carrying out fakes, changing direction, just all the little nuances of being. Look at the movement there. That is incredible. I got to watch that again. That is absolutely incredible. So look at the pile of players he's going through. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. Is that right? Is that 8 players? This is incredible. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. Yeah, that's whoever that team is, by the way, should be embarrassed, but still, Nolan James, you give him a lot of credit there. This is a great angle up top. Reads the hole, safety overshoots, and he makes him pay. I don't know if I would call Nolan James a quote-unquote burner, but he's pretty fast, and more importantly, he is very nimble. As the saying goes, you got to win the +1, meaning the free safety is just that, free. That is the guy that is basically the quarterback of the defense. Nobody's on him. Got to make him miss. Nolan James does a great job of finishing runs and scoring when he has a chance to hit that crease. Here's that safety. Makes him miss. Does it again. Runs over that poor guy. I like him as an all-around back because he's not afraid to run between the tackle. And right there was no room to make the guy miss, so he just trucked it. Little guard pull, cuts back inside, and then sees an alley. Always finishes runs with physicality, too. Nice stiff arm. Gets to the perimeter, lowers the boom on the defensive back. Look at that change of direction. Now, I don't advise going back like that at the college level. That probably won't end well, but it also shows you the footwork and the physical traits that James possesses. Great hole right there. Again, makes the safety miss, makes the second defensive back miss. Lateral ability for Nolan James is quite extraordinary for a high school kid. Getting college coaching for Juwan Sider will not hurt his cause either. Look at all the different guys that get hands on him. He just keeps trucking. His contact balance is very good. That play wasn't even designed to go left, so you can see his physical ability is good, but his vision for Nolan James, also quite impressive. Good cutback, stop and start, stiff arm, gains a couple extra yards, finishes the run. Right here, the defense should oh, wow. What a cutback. Spin move, still grinds. He gets another 7 yards after that last bit of contact. This play's not well blocked either. Makes first guy miss. Makes a couple more miss. Drags a few more tacklers. How many times have we seen Nolan James here not gain extra yards after contact? He falls forward and does a great job. And this right here is one of the reasons that he's got a chance to play at Notre Dame this year. If you don't catch the ball, you're not going to play for Sider and Marcus Freeman. All of Notre Dame's running backs that are successful, Aeneas Williams had that big catch against Penn State last year. You must be able to catch the football. So let's talk about that. He's similar to Aeneas. Like, he has the ability to catch. He has the ability to run. I think he's a little more powerful than Aeneas now that he's up to 215, but it's similar. Aeneas has been banged up some in camp. I don't know where that stands. I have not heard. But perhaps Nolan James is going to beat him out anyway. This is a guy that has more power probably at 215, and he's just learning, so he's got a little more upside because he's a year behind. I'll be curious to see if Nolan gets into the rotation. I don't know if that'll be consistent, but at some point you can't just play two running backs in college football. Even teams with a guy like Jeremiah Love, who has, quote unquote, the ability to win the Heisman, you need multiple guys, players get banged up. And I just don't see anything on this film that makes me think James is not a guy that can play early, because he's got incredible feet. Power, balance, hands, pretty good vision too. Like, there's really nothing that I don't like. So I'm gonna end it there. But Nolan James is a guy that I think will play for Notre Dame this year in some capacity. And even against Miami, I expect him to play at least a little bit. He's a late riser, and out of everybody on the depth chart, he's probably the most surprising to me. Let's go from the most surprising to the guy that I knew was going to play a lot, but I didn't know if he was going to start, and he still has a lot of upside left. And I think physically, like position he plays, the length and everything, it's not out of the realm that he could eventually be the first pick of the National Football League draft, and that is Bryce Young. He is the son of Bryant Young, former Notre Dame player from 1990 through 93, first-round draft pick, I think number 7 overall for the 49ers, Hall of Famer, elite pass rusher as an interior guy. There aren't many of those. This is his son, who's 6'7". Now, Bryant Young was 6'2", but he was shot out of a cannon. Bryce Young's very athletic, but he's 6'7". He's built more like a basketball player. But he went from, before his junior year, being literally just under 200 pounds in high school to now being a young man that is 270, 275. You talk about a physical transformation. He was like 6'4.5". Now he's 6'7". He was just under 200 pounds. Now he's over 270. Just the absolute rarest transformation to gain that much height and weight. And like you see him in a picture or a video at Notre Dame, Bryce Young, honestly, he doesn't look heavy at all. He looks lean and athletic at 270. He's very gifted. Now, Joshua Burnham is the other defensive end that he usually plays alongside and like on that strong side, but they're changing their DNs right and left, I think. I don't know if they're mixing them up. And keep in mind, Notre Dame runs a variation. They run a 3-man front. They also run a 4-man front. So there could be some different things that he does because of his unique height. And even more importantly, Bryce Young's unique length. I think Notre Dame would be wise, against Miami included, to run stunts with the linebackers and the defensive linemen and get Bryce Young towards the A-gap more to get his hands up, because even if you do not knock the quarterback down and sack him, the more valuable thing is making him change his angle and making the pass be off the mark That's when the ball goes the other direction. Bryce Young's value will not be fully felt in the stat sheets. It will be in terms of how the offensive line for not just Miami, but for every team that the Irish play, where is Bryce lining up? Boubacar Traore is going to get a lot of run, and he may be their best defensive lineman. You could argue that. But Young is the most unique physically that Notre Dame's probably ever had in my lifetime, because they never had a 6'7" kid like this. They never have. Very few teams ever do. They've got to find a way to maximize him, even when it's him not getting the sack or the tackle for loss or even the tackle 4 yards down the line of scrimmage against running back. Because if they move him around and cause chaos, other players will get free runs at the running back, the quarterback, or the jet sweep, or whatever. So Bryce Young at 6'7", 270, 275, with his twitchiness, he's blocked punts. He's been a guy that's a pain in the butt, rushing the passer, getting his arms up. They got to come up with little nuances with him in a 3-man front, a 4-man front. Maybe they stand him up occasionally when they're coming all out blitz. There's all kinds of ways to do it. That's a guy that I think is going to be a very valuable asset from game one against Miami on. I think he'll start, but it may be Burnham. But Young's upside is just unquestionable. It is elite. Sticking in the trenches, and speaking of 6'7", Gerby Lambert, another kid that's a second-year player. He's out of the greater Massachusetts area. I believe he played at Roxbury Catholic in somewhere near Boston. That's a young man that is just massive. And we thought that he was going to be a tackle for Notre Dame, and he still probably will play tackle at some point, but he's been battling at right guard. I think he's going to win the job, and I'm just going to approach it like he is. What would Notre Dame be getting, and what would he be utilized to do against Miami? There's 2 points. Length and athleticism, frame, and all that. It's kind of like what I just discussed in regards to Bryce Young. Can't teach the measurables. Very strong young man, and raw. He played in Massachusetts, high school football in Massachusetts. It's mediocre. And he ran over guys, so it's hard to grade, but he had offers from everybody. His film was really good in high school. And as a redshirt freshman now, he's been banged up a little bit here and there, but as a redshirt freshman, he's just really come on like gangbusters during fall camp. They liked him enough. Let's try him at guard, and it's worked out. It looks like he's going to be that player. But I think running the football, number one, that is a downhill duo, running duo with him. I do not want to be the defensive lineman in front of that, because any player he combos with, Ashton Craig, it doesn't matter how they do it, whether it's tight end, whatever, getting to the second level, they should be fine. Emil Wagner's the right tackle. He'll be playing next to a duo with him. That's a great athlete. They should be in a great, great spot with him taking this leap, because you just can't teach the strength, especially goal line and short yardage. I think it's an advantage in the run game. Now, can Miami take advantage of Lambert? Absolutely. He's a first-year player. I think he got in a few games last year, but still redshirted, if I remember right. He's just going to have to be careful about what he reads and not getting out over his toes and just trying to blast guys. Do your job. Don't overextend. But Gerby Lambert should be a key player. And again, he was a 4- and 5-star recruit by every service. Some people had him as the number 1 tackle in the country. Like, tremendous football player from an upside standpoint. I think he'll be very good against Miami. And hopefully, because their thinnest spot probably on their defense is defensive tackle, like most teams, he can help wear down the interior. We'll see. Now, next up is another player that I don't think he'll start, but he has a chance to make a big play in this game, maybe a few, and he's already got the size to help in the run game, to help in the screen game, despite being a receiver, and that is Micah Gilbert. He played, I believe, at the same high school that Young did, but they're both sophomores, 6'2", 205, greater Charlotte area kid that was recruited pretty heavily, but another late riser. He was a kid when Notre Dame first got him. Like, he'll play at Notre Dame, but I don't know if he'll be that great. His senior year, he went nuts. Kind of evolved last year at points, but you remember he dropped a touchdown in one of the games. He didn't play much after that. They didn't care much for that. He was wide open, and he just flat dropped it. He has the chance to do some things. He's behind Malachi Fields. He's not going to play a ton, but you got to take snaps off those receivers too. 6'2", 205. He can play boundary. He can play flanker. That's a guy that Notre Dame needs to make some plays in this game. And it doesn't, again, have to be with his hands in terms of catching the ball. How about setting the edge? setting up Jadarian Price on outside zone, pops one. He just has to get that little bit of an angle, a little bit extra edge so he can get to that perimeter. He's a track guy, blocking. That's something that you need. And he's also somebody in the screen game, same kind of deal. Maybe you run a screen to Jeremiah. Jeremiah Love gets the first wave behind him. Good luck to the safeties. I'll take Jeremiah each and every time, whether he wants to thump him, jump over him, or make him miss. He's really, really good. So not many guys that are young players are good at blocking and doing the little things, but we've heard good things about Micah Gilbert. I think he's going to make some plays against Miami. Again, maybe not with catches, but in some different ways. And he's the long-term answer after Malachi Fields. Notre Dame may not have to take any receivers in the portal this next year because they're finally to that point, and their wide receiver group's pretty darn good. Now at safety, it's a combination. I don't know how it's going to play out. There's still a lot of different questions about which side, is it boundary, is it field, etc. Tay Johnson's a guy that I think has all the upside in the world. It's a redshirt freshman from Fort Wayne. We'll see how that goes. But Jalen Stroman, he missed much of last season. He's a young man that came over from Virginia Tech. I don't know how good he really is. Look at his Pro Football Focus grades from 23. I got some questions about tackling. He had some concerns, but he's allegedly taken a pretty big leap in fall camp. And I'll take Mike Mickens' word. I think he's earned that, considering the NFL pedigree he's got, including Sauce Gardner. I'm going to go with the fact that Notre Dame's going to rotate some. Adon Schuler is going to be the main starter at safety, but is it Jalen Stroman? Is it Luke Talich? Is it Tay Johnson? Which guy finishes the game against Miami? I think Stroman's going to start. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. Tay is like 6'2", 190 something. Talich is the biggest. He's 6'4", well over 200 pounds. But which guy finishes against Miami? I think that'll be about what's between the years, and that's an important trait. Notre Dame needs guys that don't make mental errors on the back end because Miami's got plenty of speed. They're inexperienced at receiver to a certain degree. They got a couple of really good transfers, but Notre Dame can't give up any freebies. So last year they were pretty good at not doing that. How that safety position winds up by the end of the first game is probably the biggest question for me. I don't know how it's going to go, but talent is not an issue. Now it's about understanding the scheme. Coach Ash comes in. They tweak the defense. They really didn't change it. But they still got to pick up some of the zone concepts that he's putting down. They got to pick those up. They got to understand them. Whoever does, in my opinion, will be the one that finishes, not starts, finishes the game against Miami. That's really important. Now it's stick in the secondary, but a couple of young guys, just want to talk about them in general. I'll do a closer breakdown on them. I mean, it's barely going to touch on them today. Mark Zachary out of Ben Davis High School, just outside Indianapolis, close to the airport. And then all the way down in Tampa, a kid that I knew when he was a freshman. That's Dallas Golden. He played at Berkeley Prep. He's the reason they won a state title. His junior year just single-handedly took them and put them on his back, and they beat Miami Norland, who had about 20 college players. They just couldn't handle him. Running back, wide receiver, corner, free safety, doesn't matter. Dallas Golden was a dude. I'll start with him. I know him better. Getting to know him a little bit, communicating with his family, etc. I think Dallas Golden is a guy that is not only a player that can kind of handle pressure, he does better under it. He was better in games like big games when I saw him, especially at running back. Because in high school, the best athlete usually plays running back. He was a thumper. And guys that play corner usually don't think of it that way. Dallas Golden was very physical. He told me that he wanted the challenge of playing nickel, and eventually he'll probably transition to that, but they don't need help at that spot this year. I think that he will – Devontae Smith, just the transfer from Alabama, is playing the nickel. But they don't have a ton of depth at corner because they lost a corner early to the draft last year. That's tough. However, and I get this, it still takes a lot to place a freshman into the 2 deep. This is the second year in a row they've really went that path, because think about it. Last year at this point, he wasn't even as highly acclaimed. Leonard Moore comes in, depending on which service show. He was like a 3-star out of the greater Austin, Texas area. University of Texas is right there. They didn't go after him. He comes to Notre Dame, ends up being a freshman All-American after Benjamin Morrison gets hurt. He later turned pro, but Notre Dame ends up with a better player after losing an All-American. That's crazy. Mickens knows how to coach it up. And he wants guys that are physical first at corner. They're going to tackle in the screen game, help in the run game, etc. I can just tell you from firsthand experience, Dallas Golden is naturally physical because he was a thumper as a running back at 180-some pounds, playing against pretty good competition in the state of Florida. So I'm curious to see how he plays at Notre Dame and how much does he get? Does he get 5 reps against the Canes? Is it 20? I don't know. Same question I'll have for Zachary, but it's really interesting to me because both of those guys can really run. They're physical players, and they just have the ability to jump and make plays you can't teach. They're God-given. But which one handles it from a mental standpoint, seeing different formations they may not be familiar with, using their own intelligence? I'm not sure. Both are really good students. But let's switch to Zachary. He was a point guard in basketball that was really good at Ben Davis. They've got a tradition-rich program in football and basketball. Ben Davis is probably, for those that don't know, the most tradition-rich program combo between hoops and football in the state of Indiana's history. So I would imagine him being a star on both. He will acclimate to Notre Dame a little easier than a lot of schools. Like Ben Davis, it's always the team with the circle on their back. Everybody circles them on the schedule. Not that they do much to beat them, but Ben Davis is always a playoff team. It's always a team in basketball that has a chance to make a run, et cetera, et cetera. He's used to it. But his ability to jump in particular and his ability to make plays out of a back pedal are as good, if not even better, than Dallas Golden's. I don't think he's quite as long. I'm not sure he's quite as physical. It's debatable, but he may be twitchier. Which one ends up playing boundary or field or what? I have not heard and I haven't paid attention. I don't care. They'll figure it out. And again, I trust Mike Mickens. To finish up the show, I just want to give a shout out. This is not a new player in terms of recruiting or anything. It's a portal guy. But despite being a portal player to Notre Dame, he ends up winning a captain spot. That's rare. Will Pauling comes over. He's a greater Chicagoland kid, went to Cincinnati, then Wisconsin, and then he ends up at Notre Dame. Fifth-year guy. A couple years ago, he had 70 catches, something like that for Wisconsin. He was the best receiver for the Badgers by a mile. And now he comes to Notre Dame, and sometimes he beats the Notre Dame coaches into the office. That seems a little unusual to me. And he's also a guy that is in the top 4. You're going to have Greathouse is probably your number 1 as far as his volume. I think Malachi Fields is the most talented. You got Jordan Faison that is the receiver playing the flanker spot out wide. And Pauling can play that spot or inside with Greathouse. So him and Greathouse and Faison, those 3 will rotate 2 spots. And I think Gilbert will play quite a bit at boundary. And there's KK Smith will also rotate in a little bit. He's redshirt sophomore out of the greater Dallas area that will play. But Pauling's leadership and adapting to the team, being named captain after just enrolling in the spring, like that's impressive. I don't know how much of an impact he will have overall in terms of receptions, kind of like Gilbert, but I imagine he'll get the ball a few times, and he's very twitchy. He's a guy that's annoying, not necessarily a home run hitter, but he will move the chains and make the first guy miss. And I think his leadership's important for guys like Micah Gilbert, just Nolan James. Anybody that needs somebody to look up to how you carry yourself, he's going to help the Notre Dame roster a lot. Notre Dame needs all those kinds of players they can get. So playing against Miami, you need depth. It's going to be very, very hot down in Miami Gardens. I'm not sure, to be honest, what it's going to be like in terms of the weather. There's reports that it's going to rain, but when in South Florida this time of year, is somebody that's lived in Florida for quite a bit, they can tell you it's raining in 5 minutes and it'll rain in 2 hours or vice versa. So it'll probably be wet at some point, but he's a guy that's played in crappy weather too. So playing in Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Chicago, he should be good and be a leader for the Irish against the Canes. Thank you once again for making the Irish Recruiting Podcast a part of your day. Anything you need to know about Notre Dame's roster, recruiting, and transfer portal, that's kind of where I'm at. I'll talk about games. I'll do my prediction and all that other stuff on Friday. But for now, I just want to break down depth chart, matchups, and everything between Notre Dame and Miami. I know a lot of the Miami players because, again, I lived in the state of Florida for a long time. Ruben Bain and several of those guys, Wesley Passay, they're all good dudes. I think it's going to be a great matchup, and I'm here to help you understand each and every player the best I can. So please like and subscribe. We will be back soon with the Irish Recruiting Podcast.